Well, hello everybody. Just a week ago, my colleague Kerry and I were here talking about largely the US election and what that means to the business aviation sector. Another 7 days on, the election isn't absolutely resolved. There are still certain complexities that we're not going to go into right now. But what we do know is that the business aviation industry is dealing with one of the most challenging times it's ever faced in the COVID pandemic, as of course everybody is. And Kerry, I understand that in Washington, there's still work going on to try and help the industry. Could you just update us on what's happening on that score?
Thank you, Charlie. It's actually a very fluid time because there's a lot of negotiations going on and there's a lot of differing opinions on whether something will actually happen. Yeah. There's been a huge push to extend the payroll support program that has helped cover the salaries of airlines and other commercial aviation operations. And there's also a lot of airport money that they've been trying to renew. And there's been support both in the House and the Senate for providing funding on both ends and even in the administration. However, the problem is there isn't necessarily the same support on an overall package. And in the House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has said very strongly she's not going to pass an independent airline bill.
Yeah, good point. Now, for the benefit of those who aren't as close to what happens in D.C. as you are, and especially for people overseas, you say that there are negotiations going on. Who do those negotiations involve? Because, of course, you know, we had congressional elections that's changed the makeup of the House and the Senate. We're sort of in an interim phase where we're towards the back end of one presidential administration and heading to another one. So does that state of flux change the way the negotiations happen?
Well, it absolutely does. And it's not as simple a question as it would seem. So originally, the negotiations were really between three parties: the Trump administration, the Senate leadership, and the House leadership, and of course of all the members of their respective chambers as well. Since the elections, though, we have a president-elect, Joe Biden, who also has voiced some very strong opinions about which direction this should go. And it almost seems as if the Trump administration has stepped back a little bit from these negotiations. So the whole dynamic has shifted. And right after the election, there was a belief that it was going to be difficult to get a relief bill done because the Senate Majority Leader, Mitch McConnell, and the House Speaker, Nancy Pelosi, were far apart in their approaches. And as a matter of fact, they're still far apart. And not necessarily specific to the airline bill or the airline relief, but for overall relief. You know, Nancy Pelosi wants a $2.2 trillion bill. Mitch McConnell wants a $500 billion bill. That's a big difference.
It is.
And Joe Biden has expressed support, of course, for the Democrat version, which is the $2.2 trillion bill. So how this is all going to play out is it'll be interesting to see, because every hour the report difference. They're talking, they're not talking, they're far apart, they're together. But for the airline, the good news for the airline, and not just airline, for business aviation too, because the airport's money and the payroll support program has been very important for charter commercial operators, is there does seem to be support from all parties. It's just a matter of when they come to agreement.
Yeah. And then, you know, speaking about the when, I mean, here we are, it's the 20th of November. So we're essentially, as I understand it, exactly 2 months away from the inauguration of the next president. And at the same time, this crisis, you know, it just seems ever more critical. I mean, sadly, you know, I hear that the COVID infection rates in the U.S. are rising in many places. And I would imagine the consequences for the industry are getting potentially ever more serious. So, I mean, I guess what I'm coming to is, do you think the industry is maybe thinking, well, if we can just, you know, sit it out for another couple of months, then we'll have a new president, maybe things will move quicker? Or are things too serious for that? They need some help before that?
Well, they absolutely need help before that. I mean, people have lost jobs. The airlines are in a horrible situation. Now, business aviation has suffered too, but in a very uneven manner. There have actually pockets who've done well, and there have been a whole new breed of private travelers that have come in. So that's a more difficult question to ask. There's several different dynamics going on, Charlie, and one is the political dynamic. Obviously, as I said before, Pelosi and McConnell are pretty far apart. However, McConnell has been able to work with Biden in the past. So there is hope that once the inauguration happens, if McConnell is still Senate Majority Leader, that those two can work together and get a bill done. And I say it like that because, of course, while there is some still little bits of contention with the presidency, there's even more so with the fate of the Senate because the Republicans have 50 seats. There are 2 seats still up for grab that would ultimately determine Senate control. And that involves the 2 runoff elections in Georgia. And that's not going to happen until January. So we won't know until January who is going to control the Senate in the long run. Most people believe the Republicans will return and they'll win at least one of those seats. But who knows? I mean, we're in crazy times. So, but regardless, so if let's say the Senate flips Democrat, then the Democrats have a clear path to getting a much larger coronavirus bill passed, more towards the 2.2 trillion end of things. If the Senate stays Republican, then Biden and McConnell will really have to work together. And people are optimistic that will happen, but maybe it won't be 2.2 trillion. It might be something in between. McConnell has been very, very focused on a smaller targeted bill that includes financial assistance for the general population, plus the payroll protection program, which is a more general program for a lot of small businesses. Now, having said that, there's one other dynamic that's changing things, and that's the news of a vaccine. I think Pfizer today, I read, was going to apply for emergency authorization, and they said that they could start shipping vaccines overnight. That's going to change the long-term outlook and confidence of people flying in the overall industry. And I was on a teleconference yesterday hosted by Gulfstream, and Mark Burns said that they're already seeing a huge positive outlook or a huge shift in outlook from their customer base. They're very encouraged by the availability of the vaccine. So I read that the chief of American Airlines in October even said that they didn't think they would need much more help beyond, say, 6 months because of the vaccine, and that would create much more confidence in traveling.
Yeah, that's a good point. And of course, I see what you're picking up on there. The knowledge that a vaccine is coming and that sooner or later we're all going to get it does help people to start making plans again. You know, start thinking about, hey, maybe I'll make that trip I've put off for almost a year now. So that is significant. But the hard fact remains, in the intervening period, until that vaccine is, if not universally available, then widely available, you know, there are lots of aviation companies who are really struggling. And I know companies in Europe have told me, look, yeah, sure, the vaccine's coming. And yes, we're grateful for the help we've had. But we're just kind of hoping that we can hold on in business long enough for all these good things to come to pass. Do you think there are similar sentiments in the US?
I think there have been sentiments about that all along. Absolutely, Charlie. And the hard reality of the vaccine is we may get it as soon as Monday in a couple of places, limited to very few people. They're saying that it might take until the middle of 2021 before it's widely available to everyone. And then you have to have it become effective and get that global immunity or that they're hoping the vaccine will create. And then you have to manage through the myriad of restrictions from, you know, the different European countries and in the UK and in the US. So people are navigating through very tricky times. And I've heard more than one business aviation executive say, and this isn't just from manufacturing, but it's from operation, from all sides, that the key to survival is learning to operate in this environment, that this has to be the normal for right now.
Yes.
And there's, you have to make sure you protect the health and safety of people. And with it rising, there's going to be complications that come in where there's going to be contaminations and sudden shutdowns. We all went through that. And I think people have learned now how to manage it a little better. Mm-hmm. But people are hanging on. I mean, there isn't the travel to support airlines right now. And in business aviation, there still isn't business flying. Mm-hmm. We know that 90% of flying is private right now. It's not business. Yeah. So the struggles are pretty universal.
Yeah, absolutely. And on some levels, they transcend politics, but then at the same time, there's no getting away from the political dimension of this. And I guess if we can just grit our teeth and get through this last little act of the Senate elections, things will become clearer. And then eventually in January, the presidential situation will be resolved.
And yes, so it's all a matter of timing, whether they can reach agreement, now before the end of the year, or whether it will have to wait until the inauguration and the Senate elections. Absolutely. And there are negotiations ongoing. I mean, they're happening probably even as we speak right now. It's just nobody really knows whether they'll be able to get to that agreement or not.
Absolutely. Well, listen, as usual, we're grateful to you for keeping your ear to the ground. We know you're closer to it than any of us. And if I may, I'll catch up with you again in a little while, and who knows, things may have moved on next time we talk. You never know. Hope springs eternal.
There you go.
Great talking with you, Kerry.
Thanks, Charlie.
See you soon.
Thanks for watching this AIN video. Please like, subscribe, and share it if you've enjoyed it. Also, visit AINonline.com for all the latest on the aviation industry.